Before we get this show started, this interview was filmed with last week's interview, so like last week's interview with Missy, it will have some audio difficulties. Because of this, if you are wearing headphones, I recommend turning them down just a little bit so any pops in audio do not hurt your ears. That being said, let's get this show started. I need you to trust me and Missy Carroll because we're novices. What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 23 of Trust Me, I'm a Novice. I am very excited to have you with me today for our second video interview with the well-known content creator, Missy Carroll. Last week, I sat down to talk to Missy about her new brand that follows the White Sox fan base called SouthSide Behavior. We talked about all things White Sox, talked about women in baseball, players that we're liking right now, TikTok in general. We talked even about trolls and how you can use what trolls say to you on different platforms for your own gain. And most of all, we talked about the White Sox community. So if you have not seen that yet, go check it out. It is our first video interview together. However, today we are taking a slight more serious turn, but staying on the topic of Chicago. Today we are talking about Kanye West. And Missy is already here. I'm your host, Sammi St. Ledger, and this is Trust Me, I'm a Novice, the podcast about connections. We are talking science, psychology, spirituality, and about ourselves. Because Missy is here today with me, we are going to get right into it. Trust me, trust yourself, trust Missy Carroll, and trust the process because we are getting things started. Today, I am sitting down with Missy Carroll. Missy Carroll is a well-known content creator who has already been on our show before, but for those of you that do not know Missy is, like I said, a well-known content creator, specifically more known for her work on TikTok. Missy's main account has almost 800,000 followers and 11.1 million likes. And her new account that she just started, as we can see today by what she is wearing, is a White Sox fan account called SouthSide Behavior that already has over 4,000 followers and almost 70,000 likes. On top of this, SouthSide Behavior has a big Twitter following already with over 1,500. Missy, how are you doing today?
Doing great. We do need to make this quick. I have a meet and greet after this. Got a lot of autograph signings to do, so I'm going to quit this bit before someone has never met me before and is going to think I'm weird. Hi, Sammi. How are you doing?
Glad to be back. Oh, I'm so glad to have you back. It's so exciting for those of you, again, that are just listening today. It's so cool having a video speaking with Missy because it was actually Missy's idea. Yesterday, she called me up and was like, hey, why don't we make this interview on camera? And I was like, A, why didn't I think of that? But B, great idea. So it's super cool to sit down with you today.
Why not? You got to show this moneymaker, all right?
Exactly.
I have a face for podcasts that are on video, not podcasts that are audio. You know, like more people would watch if they saw how sexy the guests are.
Exactly. I got a video podcast face. Well, well said. Oh my gosh. You know what's funny? I was thinking about this yesterday. Sitting down with you on camera on Zoom like this is giving me not like scary flashbacks, but so everybody listening, I've talked before about how I did journalism at U of I, which meant I was constantly reporting. And I remember, first off with reporting, I'd been doing it for 4 years. And reporting, you're always interviewing people that are usually adults, usually like professors on campus, workers, younger people, a lot of girls I'd end up interviewing and things like that. I would never interview anybody my age because they were always in my program. And I remember one day my friend came in to class and was like, hey guys, I have a great story idea. My friend's car just got stolen. And I was like, oh, bet. Okay, I'll cover it. I felt bad for the kid. But I remember I had planned out this whole Zoom interview and I get on Zoom and I invite the kid in and I look at him and he is so attractive that I like freaked.
All right, Sammi. Okay.
So this is how I feel with you on today, Missy.
Yeah, you came on and you're like, I can't do this. She's so hot and smart and fun and sexy. Jesus. me so
I know what
hard.
it's like. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. That being said, though, I am so excited to have Missy on. What inspired me to have Missy on was in previous shows, in our previous show, we actually talked about how fantastically open Missy is about mental health and her struggle with bipolar disorder. And I loved how we got into it last time. I think we built a lot of understanding and empathy. And more recently, in pop culture, a three-part documentary came out that covered Kanye West. And I think the name Kanye West, I mean, you could comment on it. What would you say is the first thing that comes to mind when you think about how probably most people perceive Kanye West?
Well, I think the first thing, and I've talked about this like so many times, and I definitely talked about it last time too, but just to reiterate, it's always Kanye West is crazy or he's a god and he's just a creative genius you wouldn't understand. But mostly it's crazy. He's crazy. He's out of his mind. That's usually what you hear.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was what I had thought about it for so long. And not only that, but I mean, I don't think it's out there to even say like he can be kind of a jerk sometimes. I definitely think like you've seen him do some stuff that is super questionable. So for a long time I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I like his music, but he does a lot of questionable things. And like you said, I heard a
Yeah.
lot of times you just hear it's, oh, he's crazy. Oh, it's Kanye being Kanye.
Yeah.
Yes, but what's cool and what this documentary breaks down, which is especially why I wanted to have you on today, is you really get to see up close that Kanye also struggles with bipolar disorder. And I think watching the documentary really for the first time gave me such a better understanding of what the disorder was like and how really difficult it can be for people. And I think talking about it today, we can help to create some empathy. And I will say before we get into this, as a disclaimer, right now there's a lot of stuff going on with Kim, and a lot of people have been talking about how it is seen as harassment. And with that being said, I think there is a lot of things that Kanye's done that aren't good, especially how he's acting now. So we're not necessarily here to condone his behavior today, but we are here to create a better understanding.
Yeah, so what I would say about that is every time you bring up his disorder, people immediately go, well, you're making excuses for him. But it's the same thing when any of us go through mania or depression. We're not, when we tell you it's because of our bipolar, we're not trying to be like, oh, I got an excuse, so you guys gotta forgive me for all this. It's not like that. It's just, can you guys understand that I didn't do that stuff because I want to be a jerk and I want to be like this? It's my mind is telling me to do this stuff, and that explains it. But at the end of the day, it's not an excuse. So what he's doing to Kim, it's harassment, like bullying, kind of abusive.
Definitely.
I don't condone that. But I hope like what we talk about might help people do the thing that's really difficult and not call him a jerk, crazy, and asshole. Look deeper into like what he's going through and help people just see him in a different light. But definitely not condoning it, just being like, I get it. I get why he's doing this, and it's not good. Like something needs to happen about it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So digging into this, and today we'll probably spoil the documentary a bit. However, I venture to say it's a lot of things that people already kind of knew. So the documentary is really neat because it's a three-part documentary, and it starts off, and I'm sure you can comment on this, but the first part of the documentary, you really get to see when he's young and he's first coming up in the hip hop community. And really, what I noticed, especially within his character, was he was very creative, smart, humble, and determined at the same time. You didn't see any type of perhaps negative outburst or surprising outbursts coming from him. He really was just a hard worker that was surrounded with his friends and making really neat music. That was what I noticed within the first part of the documentary. I don't know about you, Missy. What was your first experience seeing it?
What is crazy is I was like looking at it through the lens of like me, and I was like, I was watching that, And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I see like a piece of me in Kanye West. And sometimes like everyone with bipolar sees a piece of them in another person with bipolar. And for Kanye, me like going into a very creative field, I see myself before I knew I had bipolar, I see myself in the same way as Kanye looked at himself, where he kind of knew like he's really good at this. He knows I don't want this to sound like I I'm the best that ever lived. I'm better than everyone. I don't want it to sound like that, but I always knew that there was something different about me in the sense that I was like, I don't want to go down the straight and narrow path. Like I know I could be better. I know I could share something with the world, make a mark on the world, and I know I could make it if I really like put myself to it. And along the way, I'm not gonna boost my ego. I'm gonna still stay humble because I don't want me to be the focus. I want what I do to be the focus. And I think that's what Kanye was like too. He's like, I don't want it to be all about me. I wanted to show everyone like my music it can be like the best. It's phenomenal. It's new. It's never been seen before.
Yeah,
And that's
and
the
it
same thing
was.
I felt about my stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to do something that's new, that's never seen before, and something that like leaves an impression on the world. So definitely the beginning, I saw myself in him like a lot. Like it was scary how much I related to him.
Yeah, wow. That's really, really interesting. And yeah, like you said, so you're both in a sense starting off, you see this someone that just knows they have something unique to offer the world that really believes in themselves. And I think that in itself, A, is a quality that is laudable. That's something that everybody should have. So you start off watching this and really building this empathy. And I honestly noticed in the first part of the documentary, I had such an admiration for him. I was like, wow, look at this guy go.
Yeah,
This is really
same,
cool to see.
same.
Yeah.
Because
And
everyone was
yeah.
like, in the same way where when I first started to pursue something, it was like it's kind of like all odds were against him. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel that so hard because even
Yeah.
though he knew that like Chicago rappers and people in hip hop in Chicago weren't like they weren't on the map for a lot of people, he did the same thing I wanted to do where I was like, I want to put like Chicago on the map. Like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's weird because
Yeah. No,
we're
but
doing
that
the same thing
I
in
know it's
different
kind of
ways,
it's the
but
same.
yeah, and I mean we'll get into that later, but yeah, it's the same thing where he had like a bunch of odds against him, people saying stuff about him coming up and stuff, and it's like you have to be so focused and so determined and believe in yourself and not listen to anything around you, and then
Mm-hmm.
you get chances and you just prove yourself without like without anyone like caring about what you do or letting yourself care about what other people say. I should say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. So I guess moving forward with that conversation, so you start off, like I said, it's cool that you have that ability to relate, and we see a lot of similarities, which I think is very exciting. And now, as you continue to watch the documentary, then we move into, as for him, a lot of fame was hitting. And I thought what's first interesting is to take a little bit of a break to kind of break down bipolar, because again, I think it is, we talked about it in our last podcast together, that it's not as well known as other disorders. And it's something that unfortunately a lot of people have a negative stereotype about. So breaking it down a little bit, bipolar is usually triggered around the age of, I want to say it's like 19 to 21. It's often triggered. You obviously feel free to correct me. And
Oh, that's accurate.
that's accurate.
Yeah.
Yes, cool. And it's usually triggered around that time by a highly stressful event. And in psychology, there is a model called, it's the diathesis or the diathesis. I'm going to say diathesis, I might be wrong, but the diathesis stress model. And
No.
this, I think so. And the model basically says it's like, basically it is a human being exists in a certain type of way, and whatever they can tolerate with their stress exists in a type of way. So if they have a specific gene for a disorder, unless they hit the specific level of stress required to trigger the disorder, it will never actually manifest. So you notice a lot that with people, and I'm sure you can comment on this, that when bipolar is triggered, it's as either stress or massive change is really, really shifting. And what's interesting with Kanye is it seems to be, and obviously we don't know for sure, we don't talk to him personally, even though that'd be cool. We see with him that it's triggering as his fame's hitting, and especially triggering, unfortunately, as his honestly absolutely wonderful mother, Donda, passes. And so that part to me is really interesting, that it really followed how the disorder is described.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. What's crazy is there's like a lot of things about Kanye that we probably disagree on with bipolar. He thinks if you take medication, it'll change who he is. And sadly, that's because when he got to a certain point in mania, people were like, okay, you need to treat this. Like Kim and all the people around him were like, you need to treat this. But he was so far into mania, he didn't want help. And I think he came back down into a stable state. And then when his mom died, it relapsed. I talk about that the most because I never knew that bipolar could relapse, especially even if you're on medication. If it's a super like stressful event in your life, you're gonna relapse. And if you're on medication, the way you battle that is you just get higher doses. That's about it. But if you relapse or if you start having like bad cycles, like out of nowhere, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And I think now he's in too deep into mania, and it's a problem. It needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, definitely. And when you describe relapses, so we covered it in the last episode, but for those of you that don't know, can you break down a little bit what mania is like? And first off, I guess before we get into that, bipolar is separated into two different types for those that don't understand. Type 1 has to deal with mania, which we're going to get into, and type 2 deals with mania and depressive episodes. I believe I said that correctly. Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So digging a little bit into that, like we said before, people are familiar with depression. I think, honestly, most people have a good handle on what it exactly is. But one more time, would you mind describing what mania is like and perhaps symptoms of it?
Yeah, so when I describe this, you're gonna be like, oh, this makes sense for Kanye West. So I'm not gonna diagnose him, but I do think he has BP1, which is you have hypomania episodes and not depressive. And I think from what I've seen, I feel like he has that, but regardless, he has mania. And that basically is when you're have such a high euphoric feeling, you feel invincible. The deeper you go into it, some people, and it's usually men, go into psychosis, which basically is a condition where you are seeing things that are not there sometimes. That could be one part of it. Another part of it is you're thinking things that are not true. So you're thinking like you're paranoid, like everyone's out to get me. And then that makes you do things that are crazy, but like do things that don't make sense. And then the other part of it is sometimes you think you're a god, that everyone should like relish in your presence. Like, does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Some people, and it goes so far to where some people just don't, like when I went through a manic episode and I had psychosis, I came down from it and was like, why did I do any of that? What, like, you don't, it has no logic or reason to it because your mind's in a different reality than what your actual reality is. So that's pretty much mania. Super dangerous. Yeah, you feel awesome, but it's very dangerous. So that if you even just look at psychosis, you're like, oh, I get it. That's what Kanye's going through.
Yeah,
That's it.
yes, absolutely. And what I think even adds another layer, and me and a friend talked about this the other day, that you get it's an interesting kind of recipe, what I would describe, because already we know that Kanye lives with bipolar, but looking back, as mind you, any mother should, but you see in the documentary a lot that Donda how like constantly is telling him he's the absolute best. And as a mom should, I think that in itself isn't necessarily problematic. But what's interesting is that all of his fans, as his fame is hitting, call him a god and like genuinely. So it's if he's in this manic episode and a large part of the world truly believes that he is this life force. And it's not to say that he isn't in a way, I mean, in a way he is because he has so much influence on the culture and how hip hop has moved and changed and who has come into new fame and things like that. But I always was curious thinking about that. Yes, you're combining feeling like you're a god with people validating that instead of people saying, hey, that's actually a little bit out there. Have you been doing okay?
Yeah, so it's just not knowingly enabling him when
Mm-hmm.
he's manic. I don't think if you called me, like, I always get like on the SouthSide page, like, queen of the SouthSide, like, and I know it's jokes, like, it's, like, and people who have admiration are like, oh my god, you're so great, and people don't really mean that for the most part, that he's a god. They just are like, you are one of the best, you're one of the greats.
Yes.
But once you go into mania and you enter a different reality, you take that into it. You can take like that kind of idea into it, and you have the delusions that, yeah, I am a god. People tell me all the time, so I must really be
Yeah.
there. So it's
Yes.
like it's like we even fans enable him, but it's not our fault. People don't understand that he has this disorder and he could take it like that, but also we're not responsible that he doesn't get help. So,
Yeah.
we shouldn't like be hard on ourselves or,
Mm-hmm.
feel
Yeah. It's just
shame.
like to
Yeah.
understand like what the circumstances surrounding it and how it's
Yeah,
heightened.
yeah. Just showing you why that's why he like feels that way is because we all looked at him as like god of rap, but he took it
Mm-hmm.
literally because of his disorder. Just explaining why,
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah, definitely. And now moving forward with the conversation, kind of going back into the documentary, what I found fascinating too is it's now we see some of his first manic episodes and we see him doing things and I'm assuming he was manic at the time. I think the biggest like flashbulb memory that comes back to me was the Grammys, the Taylor Swift wins and Beyonce should have won this award moment that Kanye had when he got up on stage. And I obviously don't know if he was manic, but it made me kind of think, or at least kind of seemed like it. And then after that, you get the president of the United States, the former president, Barack Obama, calling him a jackass to the public. So it was like quite a flip. And I think from then on, well, I think a lot of people still really appreciated his music. That very much, and in a sense, I mean, not to say as it should have, but I think it was a very natural response to doing something that was
Yeah.
so like, oh, I still feel bad for poor Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so it kind of set this tone from there on out that I think not only people, because it continued, but people expected that from him. But I think it right away got people putting him into this kind of like we talked about earlier, this box of like, you're crazy. Like people wouldn't really pay attention to him past the music from then on out.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much they were like, God, why did he do that? He's such a jerk. Like all this stuff. But, very likely just by the signs, he was probably manic
Mm-hmm.
and he was probably delusional. The other thing about mania is literally one part of the definition is doing things you wouldn't normally do, like things that are really
Mm-hmm.
out there. that's kind of like the first time I feel like we've seen Kanye get out there like that, you know? I might be wrong, but I feel like that's the first time that Kanye was put on the map as a jackass, as jerk, like an asshole, crazy. Like, I feel like that's the first time, and I don't think, I mean, there was no mental health acceptance back then. So even if we did know that was the reason, I don't think anyone would have cared. So
yeah, right. Well, and it's funny. I remember, and at the time I thought it was funny, but did you have by chance see the segment on SNL? I remember there was a weekend update on SNL, and Pete Davidson came on, ironically, back in the day, and he said, he basically said, he's like, I can comment on Kanye West's mental health because I struggle with mental health. Pete's been very open about struggling with borderline personality disorder, which is a very intense disorder to live with. And I remember he said, I can comment on it because I struggle with it. And he said, your mental health is no excuse for you being a jackass as well. And I remember that moment. But in hindsight, they don't have the same disorder, where to my understanding of borderline, and we could talk about that another podcast, but it doesn't have those episodes of mania and psychosis.
Yeah, no, I'm not like the wizard of borderline personality disorder. I am not a whiz on that, so I don't want to pretend I am. But I am a little bit of a whiz in bipolar. And the thing about that is, I don't think, like, I have borderline, Jesus. I have bipolar and I know people with borderline, but I wouldn't say I have the right to comment on it. I have the right to give, I think, like, it's tough. I feel like I have the right to give my opinion on explaining why they are the way they are, but I don't think I should label them as anything other than like, well, they have this. So think about, you look at the whys of what they did, So I've commented on Kanye before, and I said the same thing. I don't condone anything he's done. But, and you know what? You can call him like an asshole, but when you call him an asshole, don't just do that because you're simply for what they've been doing. Like, call them an asshole and be like, and you need to get yourself together because your disorder is making you an asshole. And there is no excuse. There is no excuse. But also going into like what we said last time, you also need a really good support system to get you out of it and to get you help and stuff. So it's such a gray area for a lot of people. Some people go one way about commenting and being like, no, I can say this because I have it. And then another person could be like, I don't want to say anything at all because that's their life. Kind of in the middle. Yeah.
It's a struggle. One, I think about too, like something like when I look at SNL, like SNL, you're telling jokes, like everybody in a sense is not safe in that category. So it's always hard in that like instance of pop culture, like what to do.
Where's the line? Like,
where's the line? Exactly. And so then moving past that, as we were saying, so from that point on, it's like Kanye West is now labeled as like absolutely like bonkers bananas and is like shouldn't really be listened to past music. And what I think is interesting though at this point is the documentary starts to show once he's medicated, and it starts to show what to me was like multiple sides of an individual, because you got him all the way back down to being very calm and still creative though, with this really hard work ethic and a really big focus on helping others and connecting to God at the time, like who he believes in. And it was like, to me, that was like a very different side, where looking at him then, he doesn't say this explicitly in the documentary, but it definitely got me thinking, I highly doubt, as much as he says it in his music sometimes, but I doubt he's proud of like the negative things that he's done. I guess I don't know for sure, but seeing him in that state after that state made me think like, that wasn't like his intention at all. And he's now trying to be a better person, it really looks like. or looks like within
Yeah.
that part of the doc.
Yeah, the thing is, someone on bipolar that is medicated is a completely different person than when they're cycling, which I said last time, totally stable. Like, you can be totally stable with bipolar. You just have to find the right medications that fit together. I take 5. And I'm like, I'd rather take 5 than be manic and depressed all the time, because it's brutal. Like, but I will say, what is the hard part is that mania is so addicting, and that's why I think when he starts to, like, maybe accidentally, or just decides not to take his medications, when he gets to mania, he's like, no, I don't want to be medicated anymore because I feel great and I'm making the best art in my life. But it's delusions. He's thinking like everything's fantastic when it's concerning. It should be concerning to people. And that's probably the hard part about like talking about it.
Yeah, well, and like you said, it's like you said, with it being addictive, I think that's an interesting word to describe it. But that makes a lot of sense. The same way other things in life are addictive. If you're feeling that good, and then people are like, no, take these pills to like chill out. I mean, logically, you wouldn't want to do that. So I think.
Oh yeah. I remember I was the same way. And then when I naturally came down from mania, I was like, and I like looked back at that reality and what my mind was saying, I was like, all right, that's never going to happen again, because that sucked and that was the worst. So ever since, that was like, what, 2 years ago? Over 2 years ago, ever since then, I check in every day with myself. It's exhausting, I will say that. But if I start to go dip a little low or go a little high, I call my psychiatrist right away and go, I'm concerned. Is there anything I can do? Like, you have to be constantly monitoring yourself. So I wouldn't be surprised in, like, as of late, after he started taking his medications, he might have relapsed, and no one tells you that. I'm just saying, no one tells you that. And he probably didn't want to up his medication, so he stopped taking it at all. That's a guess. This is all speculation. I'm just thinking logically what would be the reason that he went from, like, what I admired about him, which was, he was like, I want to show people you can, like, live a normal life with bipolar. Kim was super supportive of that. She was very well, Kim Kardashian, you can think whatever about her, but there is something that I admire so much about her, and that was, she's like a lot of spouses or significant others of people with bipolar, and they know it so well. It's like they have bipolar too, but they just don't. They're like stable. They know it so well. And so the thing about all that is that, just like when he was going through that, I want to inspire people to get help and whatever. And then he started to kind of like slip away into that really rough period. That's when Kim came out and was like, kind of in a gist, like, also what I always say, it's like, you guys have been like working on being more mental health conscious and being supportive, and that's all fun and games when it's anxiety, depression, some little other kind of disorders that are kind of like, you get it, you get the gist of it.
Yeah, that we have a better understanding of. Maybe more common too, within reason.
Yeah, more common. And but then it comes to something like bipolar, borderline personality disorder, schizophrenia even, which they're all classified together. And then all of a sudden it's like, what they do when they're going through that, no one has compassion. No one is helping them. They're pushed away, or they push them away, vice versa, and they just don't want anything to do with that. And so what Kim was saying is that we need to show these disorders compassion in times when they need it the most. And you don't have to, like, condone anything they do, but showing them compassion and being like, hey, I think it's time. You're not yourself. You need to get help. I'm here for you. You do that instead of saying, like, you're crazy. I don't want to be around you anymore. I know that's hard for some people, but in the long run, if you don't want to see this person struggle and be someone they're not, you have to show them compassion. I think that's a big thing society has not done for Kanye. And I believe that's the reason why he continues to be the way he is today. Because I think he's gotten no support. He's gotten no understanding. No, and I know I'm babbling, but the last thing I'll say is that he's said the same thing like I've said, and once I found out I was bipolar, I like stepped out into the world and I was like, I'm alone. I'm alone. I don't know anyone with bipolar. No one's gonna get this because it takes a while to understand what the symptoms are, how it all works. And I'm just like, I'm alone. So peace. I'm not telling anyone. I didn't tell anyone for like a year and a half, even 2 years, until I got popular on TikTok. And I was like, you know what? I don't want anyone to go through what I've gone through. So I'm going to be open about it. That's what Kanye did. Kanye had a very tough time. Society heard that and was like, whatever. Like, you're still crazy. Thankfully, I had a great audience who was like, people would find me and be like, thank you for talking about it. I know no one in my life that has it. Like, and it's good to see someone like being, talking about it when there's 5 million people in the US that have bipolar. It's freaking crazy. So I respect Kanye for coming forward, and it just is always sad to see. He probably got the way that he is now because there's no one talking about bipolar. I know that was long. I know I was babbling.
No, but I feel like we need that though. Yes, no, we need that. I feel like the more, like I said, it's anything. So sometimes you gotta talk, not to say like talk things to death, but no, the more we talk, the more we understand. Like, I think about it, there's been, not to say virtually none, but in a sense, up until more recently, virtually no conversation. So it's like we almost need to make up for every conversation we didn't get to have about something like this. So I think that's massive. And one more question then that comes to mind is that in terms of mania and in terms of coming down and things like that, kind of what I was saying before, but taking it a little bit at a different angle, what I was finding fascinating, or not fascinating, but intriguing, was that once he was coming down, once he was stabilized, it seemed like, how I was saying, people kind of stopped taking anything he said seriously. But what I did notice at the end of the documentary is that, honestly, still, even in some of his manic episodes, I noticed it, but that he still had an level of inspiring wisdom to him, I think, and it all connected back to what we were talking about earlier in this episode, that he believes in himself to such a high caliber that it's made him unstoppable. Like, without that belief in yourself, you will unfortunately not get, I don't want to say anywhere in life, but you will never achieve that high level of success that you want. And I think with that, he's been through it. He's done so many things. And I think he says things that, like I said, are extremely still powerful. And I think it's odd that we started to separate this level of inspiration from him because of other things that he's done, where I think things can exist at the same time. They can exist in harmony or mutually exist.
Yeah. I will say, throughout everything, the thing that I've always had was self-confidence in the fact that to my core, I'm like, but I can still do whatever I want because I am so determined to do it. And that's hard for a lot of people. But the thing I will say is that there's been a study done that people with bipolar tend to be more creative and go into more creative fields.
I believe
because a lot of times they see the world in such a different way than anyone else. Psychosis, for just, the obvious one. And you're looking at the world like something else. And even day to day, just being this disconnected, lonely, odd one out person in society because it's not talked about. It's not like someone with anxiety. You kind of know someone with anxiety. They're pretty open.
Yeah.
Bipolar, you don't really know. So you immediately walk into the world and you feel alone. You feel like no one understands. You feel like you're one in a million, even though you're not. You look at the world a different way every single day, every single minute of the day. You feel different than anyone. And a lot of times, not in a good way. But if it is a good way, like, you know what, that makes me unique, or a bad way where you're like, why me? Why was I born like this? It inspires a lot of people's work. And I think being bipolar and having all these very diverse interests has made me be like, whatever I want to do, I can do it. And I think because I see stuff a little differently, I can go about it a little differently. And like I said, I don't want to be like, I'm a god. Like I'm not in any sense. I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I just think I have a lot of determination and self-confidence that my creative abilities can take me far, and no one can stop me once I get going. So
and I think that's
that with Kanye.
I think that's great. And I mean, it really makes me think in general, it's, anybody in life, people that have gone through really difficult circumstances and come out of it and or continue to fight to come out of it, they have so much, not only strength clearly, but so much wisdom. So I think it's interesting that we, instead of looking to knowing someone like Kanye West or even like you now, instead of looking at somebody, but I especially think with how the public perceives Kanye, looking at someone like him and knowing he's been through all this, he's come out, he's continued to be successful, explore new options, clearly like have a family. To me, it's somebody that we could learn from based on what they've been through and persevered. So that's the number one thing that almost surprises me once I take a step back and really look at it, that we as a society haven't, like I said, logically, I guess I understand it because we haven't had these conversations surrounding him. Majority have been negative, so I get why people are quick to really discredit. But I do think we could look at it at a different angle and be surprised what we find.
Yeah, like you said, we don't have a lot of conversations. So usually, you know me, I'm a very open. I make everything like a joke, lighthearted and stuff. Even my bipolar, I'm like, because I just want to make it casual to bring up. But like something like this, I know I was a little bit more serious and stuff. It's just because it's like I got to get the point across. Because we don't have many opportunities to have this conversation. So I promise I'm not always this serious, but it comes down to it. I'll put my foot down.
You're dynamic. That's what you are. This is a big thing that I've even been thinking about, and I want to get into it more another day, but I think people can be dynamic, and I think society has a tendency, and we have a tendency to put ourselves in these boxes. I've put myself in a box a lot of my life where it's you can do multiple things at once. You can be a really fun, happy-go-lucky person, but also be very serious and educated and smart. And
look at my TikTok.
Look at
I build houses. I build houses. I dye my hair. I was in electrical engineering for frickin' 4 years at U of I, and then I don't even know what else I do. And then I go out. College. I like being that dynamic. And then I'm also into huge into Chicago sports. Chicago sport. So I have a huge range of interests. I like the word dynamic. I'm gonna start putting that on describing myself in every sense as dynamic.
Yes. Oh, I like that. She's a dynamic young woman. I love that. Or just a dynamic individual. Thank you to everybody that tuned in today. It is exciting now to have 2 episodes up with video and Missy Carroll herself, the queen of content, as I'm now calling you. That being said, we are wrapping up the show today. Thank you to everybody that listened to our first conversation on the Chicago White Sox fans and our second conversation still in Chicago on Kanye West. Missy, in the meantime, where can everybody follow you?
On my personal accounts, TikTok is missy.carroll, Instagram missy.carroll, Twitter messy_carroll. That's all 2 R's, 2 L's, and all those. And then SouthSide Behavior, TikTok it's just SouthSide Behavior, Instagram SouthSide Behavior, YouTube SouthSide Behavior, and then Twitter at capital S, capital B, Behavior. And that took a lot out of me to say.
Perfect. As usual, you can follow me on Instagram at Trust Me, I'm a Novice. And if you want to follow my personal TikTok, it is Sammi, Sammi_Saint, SAINT. My name is Sammi St. Ledger. This is Trust Me, I'm a Novice. Missy, do you have anything to add?
I'm Missy Carroll, and trust me, I'm a novice.
Yes. Okay, perfect.